Which ones did you watch?
Leslie Christian, some of Dale's, some of Henry. Those are the right ones. I watched all of Leslie's. That was so neat.
It was so neat. She's so smart.
Yep.
I mean, she is really smart.
And she had a tie into family with the lady at Bradley High School, over English or whatever that was. Yep. So that's kind of neat.
I really liked her.
She was very kind to us too. She was with hospice with Tripp. So yeah, she was very nice. She and Barrett both.
They are really good. You know, if you had to pick the perfect couple, I'd hate to go against them.
Yep.
Wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
What's your what did you go to church this morning?
I did.
Where'd you go?
South Cleveland Church of God. Edwin Lipsey is our pastor.
Edwin Lipsey. You gone there forever?
No. Peggy and I met at North Cleveland Church of God. My great-grandfather paid the dollar deed to build the church where it was used to be at. And it was no fault of the pastor or anything else, but when Tripp was smaller, they had one handicap entrance. It was not today when you're building. Everything's ADA compatible. So when he got his first wheelchair, we were moved over to the overflow room, and we were watching TV in the overflow room of the service that we were driving to be at. So I'm like, that really wasn't what I envisioned church to be. So we started looking, and we visited other Church of God locations, and they were all very nice to us and very kind. But we went to the South Cleveland Church of God, went once, very friendly. They had a handicapped parking area where we could get out, roll right into the sanctuary. I mean, couldn't get any better. And then they wanted to know where we'd like to sit the second week. I said, this is fine. I said, well, please come back next week. So we came back the third week. They had taken with the pew, sawed it off, moved the cap back, redid the carpet so Tripp would have a place to sit. And I'm like,
we're here.
We found us a church, and that was about 26 years ago.
So they did that on their own.
They did that on their own.
I bet that was one man's idea.
Yep.
You don't know who it was, man.
Well, Mark Williams was the pastor there then, before he went to Florida, and then the general overseer, and then is back at North Cleveland.
But it could have been an elder or somebody at the church.
Yes, it could have been.
You know, those things people do for you, you just you never forget them.
You don't.
Let me ask you this. Did you your sister was my typing teacher.
Oh my.
Right.
She'd been there over 40 years. Cleveland Junior High the whole time. Cleveland Junior High, Cleveland Middle School.
Yeah.
For over 20, she was in the same classroom.
Yeah, I had her for typing, me and David, Willie Jenkins. I remember that. You know, if you had to take, I don't even know if they have typing classes now, do they? Because everything's so.
I think it's computer skills.
Keyboarding.
Yeah. She's at family events. I was mentioning it last week. I'm like, Rana, you don't have to scream. And it's like, I then remember that for over 40 years, she's taught middle schoolers, and some of them don't listen until you raise your voice. So
you have to be sort of like you're in authority, or they just run over you.
Yep. I'd still drive her crazy because I hunt and peck when I type. I don't do the home row, but there's a lot of people that come up and say, your sister was my typing teacher. So,
wasn't that something to just, now I've known some people that can, my mother, she can type like it's, I don't know how many words a minute, but it's got to be more than most people.
Right. That's a gift too.
Why do they call it that? The home, what'd you call it? The
home row, ASDFG, and then JKLM, I think. I don't know.
Now, why would they do that and not just be ABCD? Somebody's figured that out, that it was used more of this number than that number letter or something like that.
Yep.
Now, while we were learning typing, Bill Gates was getting into
Oh.
personal computers.
Oh, yes.
Had we only known that he was so far in advance.
And he ended up controlling most of business activities to this day.
I guess I've used his Excel program and Microsoft Word and Excel 15 times this weekend.
Yep.
Is there somebody in a garage right now doing something that in 10 years will say, wow, I wish I'd have thought of that?
Amazon, all of that started in a garage, yes, to my understanding.
Literally in somebody's garage. What would it be next?
Unbelievable. I hope that whoever he or she is that's developing that also realizes that not to leave the humanity out of it. I mean, you can give all kinds of skills and all kinds of advances, but not everything that has been invented has been for the betterment, in my opinion. I mean, you've got some things, social media can be used for wonderful gifts. It can also be used to terrorize people. If you have a junior high student, you probably know about some of that happens with the kids today. So it's just...
How in the world would you raise a kid that would do that? I can't imagine how you'd put that in their head to bully somebody like that.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you?
Or if they know about it, sometimes the parents don't know.
But what type of parent would you have to be that would let your kids think that was okay to bully them?
Don't know.
But bullying comes in such a hidden forms.
Yep.
You think we as adults get bullied and we don't realize it?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm very sure. You know,
with a boss,
yeah,
co-worker. It's probably worse than if we stopped and thought about it.
Yep.
Now, you were a graduate of Cleveland High School, right?
1980 graduate.
80. I graduated in 84, so.
Okay.
Cleveland? Cleveland. No, I went to Cleveland Junior, Cleveland High, and Bradley High.
Well,
you've got a lot of hair.
Well, here, it's leaving back in the back, but yes, it got really thin with the last few months of Tripp's life, and then what I also wish that the people that move into Cleveland that find this quaint little town, that in moving here we don't lose the things that you and I remember. I found it extremely normal to go from first grade to sixth grade to Cleveland Middle School, to Cleveland Junior High, to Cleveland High School, actually to Cleveland State, with some of the same children that were my classmates all through that. Today, that's not going to happen. And the gifts of living in Cleveland, Tennessee. A funeral went by the other day. People pull off to the side of the road.
If they're wearing a hat, they take it off.
They take their hat off. You wonder when that will end, when there's too much traffic and the newer people don't understand that that's something that we've always done. That will grieve me when that day occurs. I know that it's coming, but hope it's a long way off.
They call it progress.
Yes.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I wonder what would happen if we charged people for moving to Cleveland that was from out of town.
Well, there's a land use fee and all kinds of other things that you deal with on a daily basis, so I'm sure it might be a possibility. Or just to every once in a while remind them of why some of these things that they see that we do they scratch their heads and go, my goodness, why are they doing that? This is why. It goes back to this. It's Southern hospitality.
What do you remember when you graduated high school, or about that time, that would have been something we did around here that, like the Christmas parade or...
Well, the Christmas parade, or I had
block party.
I was prior to the block party, but I also remember I had a 1970 Cougar convertible with the 351 Cleveland racing engine in it. Mom should have never allowed me to get that car. But we did the tour of Cleveland. You know, they used to take off and go to the McDonald's and then go to Hardee's, and for some reason that was fun.
Oh, you mean on Friday and Saturday night? Oh yeah, Walmart.
Yeah.
Did you go to Walmart?
I did. Yeah.
When it was on 25th Street, right?
Right.
The parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, those were fun, weren't they?
Red Food Store days, and I worked at the Chalet. Eddie Cartwright, Colonel Corn, Bobby Taylor, and all of them. Monday through Friday, I worked at Central Service. They did utility bills, where Peggy actually has an office she works in now, and then across the street. But then on weekends, I was the day clerk at the Chalet.
That's where my dad worked.
Yes, I met him there. And
was you there when he was there, or how did that work?
Mark Williams was.
I remember Mark. I worked there when Mark was there.
Yeah, well, he would have been the night auditor, and I would come in Saturdays and Sundays at 7 a.m. and stay until 4:30 or 5. Sundays, Colonel and Mrs. Corn, Bobby Taylor and his wife, and all of them would come in. You better have every magazine in its right rack. You better have all of the cushions on the couch straight. You better have everything presentable. And it was just a fun time. I know you find it hard to believe today, but at one time I was extremely thin, and the ladies that cooked there took it upon themselves to make sure that I never went hungry, and it's still working to this day.
You know, that was a fairly expensive place to eat.
Yes, it was.
It was like, I remember it was like $6.87 or something like that. It was really kind of expensive.
Yep. The very first county commission work session, we met upstairs there at the Chalet, and we had some back in the Holiday Inn South out there on the interstate. But yeah, lots of interesting times up in those buildings.
Now, what year would you have worked at the Chalet?
Probably 1978 to 1980.
So you were still in high school?
I was still in high school, yeah. I didn't have a whole lot of extracurricular activities other than work. I just worked. Why
did you work weekends?
To help make money for my mom.
Everybody worked weekends, then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't back then. It wasn't like necessary you had to. Everybody did. It's like, where do you work on weekends?
Right. Yep. Where that sign is, that's where I parked my Cougar every Saturday and Sunday. So nobody else could get around it. Nobody else could hit the doors or anything. So
how much did you make for the weekends?
Oh,
like $60 or $100?
No, it was probably more like 45 or 50 for 2 days. I made L.G. McSpadden was my boss at the Central Service. We did utility billings for 46 different locations. The old meter readers, they would send that in. We'd print the bills, and then we'd ship those back off.
Now, that was during the week?
That was during the week.
While you was going to school? After
school, from 4 until 7, I'd work there 3 hours a day. And I think that was $2.17 an hour. I was making big bucks.
So in high school, a senior in high school, you're working second shift. You're working after school, you're going there, and on weekends you're working at the Chalet. Can you still answer the Chalet like you did?
No, I don't think I could. No, I did learn.
Quality in?
Well, no, one of the interesting things about human behavior that some people miss without working like that, I had never seen a gold card, American Express gold card. So this guy comes in, he has one. And I said, I have never seen one of those. Well, now you have. Could you pay my bill?
Yeah.
I mean, could you read my bill? I'm like, okay, yes, sir, I can. And I also remember Mark left me that morning. The main hot water heater had gone out. It had quit working. And he had cleaned the cash drawer with refunds. And everybody was lined up out the door, and he's, have fun, Lindsay. I'm out of here. It's your shift now. And we went through, and you learn communication efforts. again, that's going to be missing. You go try and shop somewhere
You
today.
you were forced to.
You were.
Pacify.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's skills that you use every single day today. So it was tough then, but you learn for now.
Did you ever bag groceries?
I did not. Nope. Those were my jobs. And then went Cleveland State, continued some. And then when I went to Marietta for chiropractic college, I mowed yards there and mowed yards here at the house too. So,
now that's interesting because Mark went into chiropractic.
he did.
Did you go into it because he did, or was there any connection there?
That was back to Rhonda's husband, Keith. He was a chiropractor. He had just gotten out then from school, and I always wanted to do something with health related. Rhonda had an issue, and chiropractic helped her with her back issues at the time. So came upon a place to look, and I said that you're in the health related industry, you can help people, and it was not that far from home. I have lived within 5 miles of where they brought me home from Women's Hospital ever since I was born, until I went to Marietta.
Inman's Hospital?
Women's Hospital in Chattanooga, right next to UTC now. And even when I was in school in Marietta, I came home every weekend but 2. I have always lived in Cleveland and love Cleveland, Bradley County.
So Mark Williams had nothing to do with you becoming a chiropractor?
No, but I did ride with him a few times because I would leave my car.
Did y'all go to the same school?
We did, yeah. He and Steve got out a year before I did. I hope Mark slowed down some now. I would not recommend it for people.
I think I saw him running down Stewart Road last week with a backpack on. I'm not sure if it was him or not, but I think it was.
He's a beast. He was running then. It would be nothing for him and Steve to run 10 miles before classes. I mean,
one thing I would hate to do is call either one of them an SOB.
Yeah, that would not be a good thing. No, I have never seen Steve do it, but I understood he could stand flat-footed and either flip forwards or backwards and land on his feet. And Mark was just the consummate athlete. They're good brothers.
Steve cracked my back ever since I was 16 or 17 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But he's retired now.
He has retired. Yep.
And he was so comforting to talk to. Something about the tone of his voice. Mm-hmm. He just made everything. I'd go in and I'd say, you say anything, will this help my so-and-so? Mm-hmm. He'll say, absolutely. And
that sounds like Steve. Yep.
Do you think the alignment of the back and all of that is extremely important?
Oh, it is to a degree. Now, there are some things that chiropractic cannot help. I will tell you that. There is a lot of things that it can't, but your nervous system controls everything. I made it 25 years doing that till I had an injury and surgery and I couldn't continue. My balance is off. But while you're sitting here, while we're talking, you are digesting food, you are regulated how much you're breathing, you're regulating your blood pressure. All of that occurs without us even thinking about it by our nervous system. And if you have an impulse from your brain going to your mid-back, the nerves to your stomach aren't getting that information, it's not going to work well. So yes, it does help. It is very beneficial. It can help a lot of things. In my opinion, it cannot help everything. So,
is it like a water hose? You crimp a water hose and the water doesn't come out as well. Is that the way the nerves do? It doesn't send the signal as clear?
Right. Because everything it's a complete circuit. It has to send the impulse and then it has to receive back what the organ or body part is receiving that impulse, how it's functioning. So either one of those messed up, it doesn't work too well.
So the chiropractic simply aligns or allows the transfer of information, I guess.
You got it. Yep.
Is the information electric?
Electric and chemical. Sometimes biochemical. There are portions of the impulse that is transferred electrically. There's portions by enzymes, proteins, all of that, but it originates with an electrical impulse.
So if I'm walking and my hips kind of out, and I'm doing that for months on end, it's going to start to affect some signaling of the nerve because the body's made to be aligned.
Correct.
So in that case, a person should go to the chiropractor once a month or once every 6 months.
My way of looking at it when I was in practice was, we'll get you through the symptom stage. From that point, you decide. If you want to come back at any time, that's fine. If you want a regular maintenance program, that's fine with me too. A great, I'm trying to think of my adjective, homogeneous symptom or system would be going to the orthodontist. If they tighten your braces 2 times, they're not going to straighten your teeth. You've got to go back a few times. But once you complete it, it stays where it should, but you usually have a retainer to hold it in place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar.
So chiropractic is very important.
In my opinion, it is, yes. I made it 25 years in practice, and I enjoyed every single day of it. I had the original patients, and Keith and I had opened an office in Chattanooga. We were right there before on Hamilton Place. We opened in February. Hamilton Place opened in August of 87, and it was an interesting time. It's not so much like planning that you always hear of people that get upset with planning and stuff, but they opened Hamilton Place Mall in August, and all of that traffic going to the new mall. Then they decided to increase the bridge. So they stopped the traffic on that bridge. So that was just a nightmare. But it's now a 4-lane bridge.
Right.
It should have been done before they opened the mall. But
yeah.
it was an interesting time.
Well, why did you end up retiring? Did you wish you had just stayed in it, or was you just burn out?
No. Now, it's I do not ever want it to come across. It was not Tripp's fault. Never was. But we were at Burt's Pumpkin Farm in Lumpkin County, Georgia, which is up close to Dahlonega. And we had gone in October. We found that tour. We go to Calhoun, up past LJ, see all the flowers. I mean, the falling leaves and stuff. And then we'd come back through Parksville and back home. It's a great, nice 3-4 hour drive. We were moving Tripp from the van to put him in his wheelchair. And I'm a chiropractor. I know better. But I reached and twisted and reached again. And I herniated L4 and L5. At that time, I was in my mid-30s. I still thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I'll get through this. But as a small business owner, self-employed, and trying my best to keep everything going, even though I was getting adjusted, I was re-injuring it every single day at work. So I made it 2 years with ever increasing pain and not stopping. I did it to myself. So being bullheaded. And
so you're saying when you're chiropractic, you were actually straining yourself.
Oh yeah. I was a bigger person at that time, and bigger patients kind of migrated toward me. So, it was not unlike an ordinary day for 2 or 3 300-pound men to come in and get an adjustment. And I don't care what the chiropractor says. If you physically move 300-pound people, you will eventually pay the price. And I did. So I got to the point where I had foot drop. I couldn't raise my leg. So I had orthopedic surgery. They gave me back the use of my leg. The pain level, if anything, is probably about the same, if not worse, because of the degenerative arthritis over time. But my balance, there is no way I could adjust people today. So you talk about an interesting and trying time. We had 3 children at home. We had a home. We had a business. We had a building. We purchased 1/6 of a downtown city block. We had the old Stanberry's building, the dentist and the medical doctor and all that land that went with it, and you can't work.
What year was this?
That was 2011. You learn the power of prayer, and you learn God's faithfulness really quick. I have driven school buses. I have worked for Head Start. I have sold cars. I have done anything I needed to do to make an income. But God has made a way. You pay your tithes. You can do much more with 90% than you ever could with 100 if you kept it all. And I will preach that till the day I have my last breath. God has protected me and my family.
John Paul used to tell me that God will give you the money back before the check clears.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Boy, that's a hard thing to do sometimes, isn't it?
And just to, I know it's a human thing, but I think it's a man thing too. We're supposed to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to make it right. Some things you can't make right.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. When you say some things you can't fix, as a father,
Mm-hmm.
It is so horrible when your kids have a problem not to fix it. It's in our DNA, and probably in a mother's too.
True.
You know, and boy, but we just do the best we can, right?
That's right. And some things, as hard as it is, it's actually good for the child to learn on their own, that they're not always protected. You're there in the background if they need you, but they figure things out on their own, and that's a lesson they never forget as well. But when it's stuff that's just unfair, that's not right.
Yeah, it's different trying to explain to a son they've got to pay for a broke window. Yep. Versus other stuff. There's right. Levels of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, all we can do is assume there's a hereafter, isn't there?
Yes. And what a glorious place it will be.
We have to assume that, and we have our own evidence, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing I can go on.
Yep.
Now, what's your current job?
I work with the Tennessee Department of Health. We have our own PIO, so I can't tell you, public information officer, I can't tell you all of the inner workings of the health department, but there is a health department in every county in the state of Tennessee. Some of them are owned and funded directly through the county or area that they're in. Large places, Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Johnson City, and I know there's one more. The majority of, and all of the rest of them are a partnership between the state and the local governments. So Southeast Division has 10 counties that circle Hamilton County, and we have 4 county directors, of which I'm a part of. And I currently have Bledsoe, Ray, and Sequatchie counties, and I serve as their director. So I hire, fire, work with, and for the local administrative staff that's there, the nurses, the physicians that are at the health departments, and also deal with the local government aspect, which I truly, and that's just my forte, I truly enjoy that part.
You're familiar with that.
Yeah, so I've met some absolutely amazing county mayors and city mayors and their workers and their finance departments. So it's been a wonderful thing.
Is Sequatchie Bledsoe, or is that Greeley Lager?
Sequatchie is Dunlap, and Bledsoe is Pikeville.
Pikeville. Mm-hmm. And where else did you say?
Ray.
Ray.
So that's Evansville. I'm a little bit north of Dayton there. I started out with Meigs County. My predecessor, they had achieved a tremendous goal, and we kept it going. Tiny little Meigs County, Tennessee, had the highest rate of vaccination per population in the entire state of Tennessee.
Meigs County.
Meigs County.
And why is that? How in the world would you ever figure out that reason for that?
They have a dynamic nursing staff. Their office staff is amazing. Their nurse supervisor there was in the Army, so she knows how to get things done in a systematic way. And they had a tremendous working relationship with the Emergency Management Agency. So when another county director retired, they moved Meigs to the lady that has McMinn County and Polk County, and I was transferred over to pick up Sequatchie. So, and I love them all. They are just, I think total there's like 45 or 46 of the kindest, greatest, most hardworking people you'll ever meet.
So you're over those three facilities
at the local level. Then we have our regional offices, and then we have our central office. But I'm that person that hears the complaints and tries our best to make corrections when they to make it work better.
Where do you work out of?
My main office or central location is in Ray County. So I leave here every morning. I'm in 2 days in Sequatchie County, 2 days in Ray County, and 1 day in Bledsoe County. So that's my.
You mean you actually go to the health department themselves and sit there and?
Yep.
Well, that's a good idea. You can kind of keep tabs on everything.
Yeah.
Where's Evansville?
If you take 60 to 27, you turn right, you're right in Dayton. It's the next town up from Dayton. It's in between Dayton and Spring City.
I don't know if I've ever been there. I've been to Spring City, but I don't know if I've ever noticed Evansville.
The health department there is directly across from the high school. We had, this past week, we had a nuclear disaster drill that they hold from TVA, and Federal Emergency Management, Tennessee Emergency Management, the health department, TVA, all of them worked it out to where if there were an emergency, this is the plan that we would decontaminate people that are leaving the area in the evacuation zone. So what an eye-opening experience. It was a great event.
Evansville, time doesn't change, does it?
That's the only one time doesn't change. My other two, Central Time. So
boy, that's confusing, isn't it? Golly.
Try and make an appointment. Well, which day, which place, what time zone?
And while you're talking to them, you got to act now. 3:00. Which time are we talking about?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets complicated.
That is very complicated. I've done a job or two in Pikeville, and it actually almost gives you jet lag thinking about the different time zones.
Yeah. I save a little bit of time going, but I'm always late coming home.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not one of those jobs that, well, it's time to leave, I can go.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure everything's done, and sometimes you're late.
Do you notice all health departments smell the same? They got a distinct smell.
They do, I guess, yeah.
It's different than a doctor's office.
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but it's slightly different.
My one in Bledsoe is actually the newest one. Up until this last year, is brand new. I mean, their dental operatory and their dental location is phenomenal. I mean, they have outdoor windows. I mean,
where is it? Where is it? They're on.
It's on Fraser.
Behind the courthouse.
Behind the courthouse on Fraser Street, and it looks over into an area that will eventually be a park.
Right now, it's sort of wooded,
yes.
I think. And you can see a railroad track down below or something.
Yes.
Well, I'm good on it.
You are. There's nothing you don't know.
When you're down in Pikeville and you're getting ready to eat lunch, you are in trouble, aren't you?
Well, yeah, to some degree, but
you got Taco Bell,
and they have Scotty's now. That's kind of like the
Scotty's. Yeah. Scotty's, Taco Bell, McDonald's.
And a new place is called the Butter Dish. That's kind of like the cookie jar of Pikeville.
The butter dish is down on the main road, I think, and they got like bread and like made to order sandwiches or something.
Well,
or is that next door?
It's further toward the McDonald's. You're passing Sells hardware store, and it's about 5 businesses on your left. It's the old, looks like a log cabin. Has a screen porch around it.
Right. I know exactly where. That's the best food I've ever eaten.
Yes. No,
bar none.
Yep. It's good. They're very nice people too.
I mean, it is unbelievable, that food. Because I renovated the Ocoee Regional Health Corporation like 2 months ago. That's how I remember.
Okay.
And that butter dish has the best food I've ever eaten in my life. I don't know if it was different owner or what, but it's good.
I think they got a new owner about 6 months ago.
Well, it is award-winning.
Yep.
What, you ever eat their meatloaf?
I've had that once or twice. I usually get the salad that comes in that oblong-looking bowl.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But I mean, even their hamburgers. I was with one of my guys, and he said, "Man, even their hamburgers are good."
Yeah, you get and you see the cross section of town. You'll see the county mayor, the city mayor. Everybody comes in there to eat. So
and their pinto beans, they put some kind of a chili pepper in it that's really different.
Okay, I haven't had them yet.
It's
I'll have to try that.
It's slightly like a chili pepper. It almost tastes like you're eating chili, but it's not.
Okay.
But I like Pikeville, and but now Dunlap, I don't know. That's a little hard to get to.
Yeah, you could. Yes, it's 111 if you go over the mountain that way, or if you make it to Bledsoe, you can turn left on 127, and it's 18 miles down the road.
On the ridge.
Yes.
Now, the health departments, what would they do different than, say, Caris Medical? You know, we got that new Caris Medical or Ocoee Regional Health Corporation. They're the primary care. Why is there a health department? Is it just that the government thinks that every county should have a way to have health care that's not dependent on something?
You have to understand that there are financial safety nets, and then there are medical care safety nets. Some people would not qualify for going out to a private physician, and we have a sliding scale that they pay, and they don't get a prescription and then have to go try and get it filled. Whatever prescription they get, we fill that prescription in-house for them. So it helps with making sure that they have access to the care, and it helps in making sure that they have the basic needs met. So if they were to find something that we could not treat, of course, they're going to refer that out and find them a way. And there's a program that helps in that as well. So I think it's a safety net for the communities that make sure that everybody has access to care.
To the basic. Like a sore throat, a headache,
vaccination, sore throat, headaches. They, diabetes, any kind of systemic problem like that. They're not going to help you with childbirth. They're not going to help you with things that you need a private physician for. There's a limit to what they can help. So
it's a little bit below your primary care places, but above the. What about this new thing that Walgreens has, like the doc in the box and stuff? Would they do less than the health department, or would the health department do less than them?
I don't know their whole formulary and how they treat. I don't know, but I'm very proud of our people. They have sometimes almost impossible goals made from Nashville that they're supposed to try and abide by. Because you're dealing with people. It's not like you're building a widget and you can produce 6 of them and they go out the door and it's done. People sometimes don't show up on time. People sometimes don't follow your advice. People sometimes don't follow through on their care that they're supposed to have gone. We've had a person who they found breast cancer in a man. They got him sent. They found a person who came in for blood pressure. One of our physicians found with a stethoscope a heart defect that they needed to be sent to the emergency room immediately. While in the ambulance going to the emergency room, they had a heart attack. They survived. But had we not been there, had that provider not been there, they might not have. So, yeah, they have my highest respect all the time.
How long would you say the county health departments have been in place?
Now that's a question.
It's interesting. Isn't
I'm
it?
thinking it's somewhere in the mid to late 40s. I'd say after World War II.
Prior to that, you were SOL. I
You
guess.
probably own your own. And that's how Bradley Memorial started with after the Hill-Burton Act, after World War II. It was the way it got started to make sure that it was a memorial to our community and the people that lived here. So
that's where. But prior to that, you were just in trouble, weren't you?
Oh yeah.
I mean, what would you do? Well, I guess you'd just bargain and give moonshine for health care or whatever, because it wasn't like there weren't doctors. But boy, whoever put that in place did the right thing, didn't they?
Well, it served its purpose in making sure that you had a provider and a business and a building that people could come to, but it also made sure that they knew where it was and it was available. So, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me, not off the subject, but how did you and Peggy meet?
Oh, hey, back to North Cleveland.
Because you were telling me you was...
Yes, I was in the balcony at North Cleveland, and I saw this beautiful young woman in a red dress.
How old are you?
I'm 24, 25.
And you're doing what then?
I was finishing up. I had finished school at 23. I was working here in Cleveland.
As a chiropractor. Yeah.
And
you're in the balcony?
I was in the balcony. Richie Hughes, my cousin, was going to...
you mean the Richie Hughes?
The Richie Hughes.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, he was like, I've seen her somewhere. He was at Lee, and he's like, I think she's at Lee. So he said, I think her name's Peggy. So it's one of those Hollywood moments you see, and I'm leaving the balcony, and church was over, and she's coming, and at the old North Cleveland, when I came out of the balcony, she was right there at the stair steps. And I said, is your name Peggy? And my life became better from that day forward.
Did you ask her out immediately?
She will tell you that she asked me out first, but I was smitten. I will be honest. She was gorgeous. That got my opinion, my attention. But her heart and her devotion and her...
She's not bad looking now, is she?
She's definitely not. She is an amazing young lady still. She's 3 years younger than me all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's how we met. Year and a half.
Where'd you go out first?
The pizza, was it Godfather's Pizza that was up where the old fort used to be?
Or was it Goulard's?
I can't.
You remember Goulard's?
No.
I believe it was Godfather's.
Yeah, that there, and then the first date that I took her to was Garfield's, which is where
Cafe Roma.
Cafe Roma is today. It used to have the second little step up there on the top.
I have told people that 500 times, and they say you're crazy. Nope. But there was a step up.
There was. It was like a little balcony thing. Yeah.
I mean, you're the only one that remembers that.
I had a beautiful girl there with me that day too. My memory was much improved.
They had real good French fries.
They did.
They were like this. They were the first that had the seasoned fries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I did ask her to marry her. It was her birthday, and we had been with the opening of our office in Chattanooga, and the place that's on the corner of Shallowford and Lee Highway, it's not much today. It's 3 stories, but they had a restaurant.
Ocean Avenue?
was downstairs in the middle. It wasn't Ocean Avenue, but I rented out the entire restaurant. And it was her birthday, and we walk in, and there's nobody there. And then while we drove my little 88 GMC Sonoma pickup truck, I had Jeff Hamilton come and steal it. So we walked out, and there's nobody there. And she said yes, thank the good Lord. And I had a limo waiting on us, and he drove us around all of Chattanooga. So it was. You
should have said no.
I'd have been in trouble.
I think that's a Mexican restaurant now.
Could very well be.
I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, times fly, don't they?
34 years ago.
34 years ago.
This December will be 34 years.
Golly.
Yep.
You think we've got another 30?
I hope. That was my dad's defining birthday. He said 60, because he said it finally dawned on him that he had been here longer than he will be here. And he made it to 89. So I don't know. I'm just happy for every day the good Lord gives me. Every day is indeed a gift.
Do you think working for Gary Davis helped you in your position now?
Quite possibly. I met some of the people. I will always hold the highest regard for Gary. He gave me an opportunity. Back to when you go back to where I was looking for work, and I helped him with the ability to know from a commissioner's standpoint. He and I both were elected the same year on the commission.
That's
and
right. You were county commissioner for 12
years.
About that.
And I considered him a friend then. I consider him a friend today. Mm-hmm. He's a good man.
Now go back to that year in 2011.
Okay.
You hurt your back.
Right.
You figured you can't do it no more.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying for an office. The office in Chattanooga had quit. It was just more than you could handle, I guess.
Well, Keith and I had come to the conclusion you can. I love my brother-in-law to death. He's a wonderful man. He's been good to my sister. But in my opinion, you can either choose to be brother-in-laws or you can choose to be business partners. You really can't do both. So we had parted our ways business-wise, and it was just Peggy and I building here, and it was a tough time. But
you were next to the wig shop, right?
I started there. That's where we opened. Jim Nave, I think, was the gentleman who had been there before. You go in the back and you can see all of the businesses that had been there, and they just took a pencil and marked out to the next one. But we stayed there for 5 years, and then we moved down to the former Stanberry's medical and dental office for the last 18, 19 years.
You were there 19 years. See, I thought you were still up there by the wig shop. For some reason, you used to always take your dog with you.
Yes, that was Molly. We were doing pet therapy before there was ever pet therapy. She went everywhere with me.
Everywhere.
Except church. She never made it to church, but she understood English. I mean, I've never had a dog. We have wonderful dogs today, but I've never had a dog like her. You could tell her which toy to go get. She'd go get that toy.
What kind of dog was she?
A mutt. She was golden retriever and good Lord knows what.
She was a pretty big dog, wasn't she?
Yeah. She was so protective. The wildest thing. She would be friendly to everybody at the office. They're like, you need to be careful with the dog that big. If she ever got defensive, which she never did. But at home, it was the switch flipped. She monitored all of our children. Before she would go lay down at night, she literally would go to each door and make sure that the doors were locked. You did not get around Trip or Aubrey. We had Micah toward the end of her life, but she would get between you and them. if you were walking up to us out in the neighborhood walking, you didn't get close to those babies. Those were hers.
And that wasn't a coincidence. That was real.
That was intentional on her part.
Where'd you get her?
Julian Burke. I don't know if you remember Julian Burke. He was the city of Cleveland's IT guy back in the day. His wife, the Bancroft Road, she was a Bancroft out there, and her dog had pups. She said, "We've got 13 dogs. We need to find a home for." Peggy got one of the 13 for me. She was a Christmas gift to me from Peggy.
I had a dog for 13 years and it died, and I can't hardly stand it today. If I talk about it, I can't hardly talk about it. Yeah. Isn't that funny how animals will do that to you?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Dee Burris, and most of you know me as a general contractor. In October of 2020, I started a podcast that I call The Discussion with Dee Burris. Each week, I have conversations with interesting, informative, and fascinating people from Cleveland and Bradley County and the surrounding areas. You can watch the discussion at dburris.com on YouTube and Facebook, where we would ask you to please subscribe, it's free, for updates and notifications of new shows. It's no problem. This 2011, you just said, I've got to close the door. Did you have a job? Or did you just go on faith?
I went on faith. Dr. Hodges did my surgery, and he said, "Doc, you have adjusted your last patient." I hate to be the person to inform you, but
you hadn't closed the door then?
No. So we had to send all of the patients.
Did you think that you might not be able to go back when you went into surgery, or was you thinking that you're going to go back?
Oh, I was young, 10 foot tall, bulletproof. I'm going to get this fixed and I'll be back.
Yep.
You know, the plan was, it's good to make plans, but all plans don't succeed. You know, good Lord, give us another 20 years, sell the practice, sell the building, pay off the house. Life is good. That didn't happen. So we were fortunate. God took care of us. We sold the building eventually. And it wasn't in the price range where they are today, but
did you sell it to the TVA Credit Union? Or
no, they were across the street.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian Trotter and all of them, Leslie Sims, Susan, and all of them. They were wonderful neighbors. I mean, we were things you remember, the terrorist attacks. They had the TVs over there. We'd go across and go watch, and it was just things that, it was a community then. The McDougalls behind us, they had a printing and design firm. Miss Pettit was still alive then, Stanley Pettit's widow, their apartments.
And maybe Mike Hodnett?
Mike Hodnett, oh my, what a man.
What a man.
We had solved the world
He never had
conversations.
a bad day.
He would come over and we would, if we weren't busy, I'm like, "Sandy, I'll be back." She was my office manager for 17 years, and we just go out in the parking lot and talk. I mean,
he used to come in here and talk. He'd pull up to the front door. I remember I had somebody here that didn't go out to meet him.
Right.
And I said, if he ever pulls up, you meet him out there in the parking lot.
Right. Now, he was an inspiring man to me because, like you said, he never had a bad day.
Never.
And nothing stopped him.
Nothing.
He designed subdivisions. He built buildings.
He did stuff he couldn't even do.
That's right. It was.
He couldn't even write. You know it. Really. He just
toward the end. Yeah. He and Tripp were right there with me. They never understood the word "I can't." So inspiring.
That is so hard for us to understand how inspiring those people are to us. And not only them, but I mean other people that aren't handicapped. They're just all the time. They do little stuff. You say, boy, that really inspires me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Mike? When did he die? It was like it hadn't been that long ago.
No.
Like 07, 08? Oh no, 10.
I think it's about 10. I think.
Well, 2010 seems like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go to work first when you closed your office?
Head Start. Was hired there.
James Anderson?
James Anderson.
Well, he's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
Top notch.
I was their health and nutrition specialist. They gave me an opportunity to do that.
Did you just apply?
Yes.
You saw they had a job open?
Mm-hmm.
How long was it from the time you closed the office till?
It was less than 2 weeks after surgery. They needed somebody bad, and I needed work really bad.
So that was really luck, wasn't it?
Yes. Designed from above.
Yeah. Because that wouldn't happen today.
No, it wouldn't.
You wouldn't even be able to even see the ad in that length of time.
Right. And then I worked for Cindy Mullinex, a car guy's dream. I sold Lincolns and used cars for her for 6 or 8 months. I drove school buses, like I mentioned. JC, can't remember JC's last name right now, but he had a stroke and they needed a driver. And Tommy Green was the maintenance and supervision director back then. And then Hal Taylor came along and they sent me I have a CDL. I can do school buses now. I've kept that just in case. You just never know.
You never know.
So, yeah, God takes care of us.
You know, it's funny. I had a real estate license one time, and I kept paying that retirement fee every year for like 15 years in case I finally quit paying it. When you're raised a certain way, you just can't give up any kind of security.
That's right.
You'll spend whatever it takes within reason to still hang on to that dock before you let go.
I retired my chiropractic license for about 9 years, and I still kept thinking that I might, but I finally just come to the fact that that's not going to ever happen. So if it were to come back, I'd have to meet every year 24 hours of continuing education that you had to do. I don't foresee that ever happening.
But it was the right thing at the time, right?
Yeah, and they were good to me.
Would you ever think that back surgery, lifting him up and twisting, was probably part of the plan?
God has a way of if you won't make the move, He will make the move for you. So I had never thought about it that way, Dee, but it very well could have been.
I mean, that was the catalyst that started this whole thing.
Yep.
Just it kind of allowed you to ease into it a little bit. And you didn't take it quick enough, so he did.
Yep.
Do you think that we have any control over what happens to us, or is it just God's in control anyway?
I think we can most definitely improve or impede His plan, but totally it's His plan, what happens to us. I would have never considered Tripp's death being a gift until you look at it that it's a parent's nightmare. It really is. But then what would have happened had Peggy and I died first?
Oh, Lord.
And who takes care of Tripp? His sisters have been wonderful. I have 3 amazing children, one who's passed away. But they have lived with special needs. They could not take care of special needs. So knowing that he is in his heavenly home really is a gift. So it took a while to get there. But
And you may not get there even completely for a while.
Oh, I know I won't.
It's just,
I know I won't. There's just moments each day.
Just
things
horrible.
that happen. Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. It just tears me up.
Yeah.
You know, I see a lot of posts on Facebook and stuff, but there's stuff that that you couldn't put in a paragraph. It's just you couldn't explain it in 5 hours time.
Right.
You know, one of the worst things in the world is sitting in the emergency room. Waiting on those people to come and get you.
Oh yeah.
And your kids. I had my son went one time for a crazy reason. And I was that close to knocking the door down to the emergency room.
Right.
Really this close. I just don't want to say it.
Right.
And I would have. You know, it was no, unless you've been there, you have no idea.
That's right.
But this was kind of a regular thing, right?
He was 29 years of age. He had been through 72 surgeries. We had signed the form 72 times.
Different times, not 3 and 1.
No, different times. For the anesthesiologist and everybody to be able to, we've given you this report, this might happen. We need you to sign the release. And nothing stopped his determination. I mean, he was just a special kid. He really was. He had been through, and this is amazing. Pastor Lindsey mentioned it at his service that of those 72 surgeries and probably 115 admissions to a hospital, he'd had well over 10,000 x-rays. He had had over 1,000 CT scans. He had had over 600 MRIs. He had had all of these tests with massive doses of radiation. He had no memory deficit till the last 6 months. He had no cancer with all of that radiation. So that was a gift to know that he was that protected. He would come out, and Victoria Pritchard, it was one of his teachers, and she was one of the first people he would always call. I made it. So, yeah.
It's just terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would you have traded it for anything?
No. You can have 3 children, and they're all different. Our daughters, Aubrey is our oldest daughter. She is an amazing wife now. She's married, and they're getting ready to move to Sewanee. He's going to be in the ministerial program over there, and the best way I can describe it is she's probably a little left of Bernie Sanders, and Micah, our baby girl, is probably a little right of
Ted Cruz.
No, Ted Cruz or Dave Ramsey.
That's right.
Micah has. She's finishing up at Cleveland State. She went to UTC. Found out living on campus was not for her. And away from home.
Where'd you say she went?
UTC for the first time. And when she was barricaded in, and they were having beer pong tournaments at 3 a.m. out in the living room, she's like, "Daddy, I can't do this." And I'm like, "You're not going to have to, baby. I'm coming after you." So, but she has written the check out of her checking account. She owes nothing, finishing up 2 years of college. So it's interesting to know that no matter what path they take, no matter where they end up, and them all being a round trip as he was growing up, that you love them all. I mean, they're your children. So each one is a gift.
And they're all different, aren't they?
Every single one of them is different, yes.
You think it has anything to do with how we raise them, or you think they're just the way they are?
I hadn't thought of that one either, Dee. I don't know. I think it's probably just the way they are. Because you tried to, I mean, we looked at trying to treat all of them the same as much as you could. I mean, Tripp took a lot of time for Peggy and me, and the girls were always having to deal with mom and dad's gone to the hospital again. When Tripp was little,
and the worry.
I made a promise that Tripp would never go to sleep without hearing me say, "I love you, son. Good night." So that wasn't too bad at T.C. Thompson or all the other places close to home that he was at. But then when we ended up at Emory and for months on end at Eggleston Children's Hospital, Scottish Rites Hospital down there, and then we ended up some surgery or some specialists were up at Vanderbilt. I picked the girls up after work, closed the office after they got out of school, put them in the back of the truck, and we would drive to the hospital. We'd get out. They would do their homework on the way home, and then
which hospital?
Eggleston, Scottish Rites, all of them. And when we
like a 6-hour drive or 3 hour?
3 hours there, stay an hour, and drive 3 hours back. The girls would be asleep in the car. So that's where the 29 years of them seeing that happen occasionally, and I'm sure it affected them because they don't know when that's going to be happening again. We had a ceiling lift at our home to transfer him from his bed to his chair to the shower and all of that. We had a nurse who didn't have it attached to him properly and he fell. Aubrey still hears that noise when he was probably 5 feet up in the air and landed on hardwood floor. So that has been another adjustment. For 29 years, we've had equipment running. We've had a small step-down unit at the house with breathing machines, ventilators, all this stuff, and personnel in our home. He had day nursing, then he had night nursing, and just instantly it's changed. Some of the kindest, nicest people that have ever taken care of Tripp were his home nurses.
And now they're gone.
Now they're gone.
So that's traumatic in itself, in a weird way, isn't it?
For us and them. I mean, it was a stable place. It was just a routine that we had gotten used to all that time.
You know, you worry about the effects of, I noticed when one of my boys has a problem, I can really tell it bothers the other one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's subliminal, but I can tell it really bothers them.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what those girls went through.
Well, I salute them both. They have been through a traumatic time, and they have come through it, and they're both healthy and well.
And it didn't affect them. It didn't affect their school. It didn't affect their personality.
No.
And so that's really says a lot about them, doesn't it?
Yes, it
does. And it says a lot about y'all that you didn't change the regular home living to where it affected anybody. You tried to make it seem normal, I guess.
As much as it could. It was, and there were some things they did miss out on. They really were. They were 14, or Aubrey was 14 before she ever saw the ocean, because we could never travel that far until we could get a nurse to go across state lines and stuff. But she also got to go to New York City and meet Regis and Kelly with the Kids Wish Network with Tripp to see all of New York. And funny story, Dee, you'll get a kick out of this one. We're sitting there and we had the time you could go to, they had it scheduled for us to meet Regis and Kelly, which they were great. And the tour around the island on the boat. And we had a special guided tour through the zoo downtown in the middle of New York City. And Tripp took a key from the city of Cleveland. Tom Rowland and all of them gave that key to the fire department that they lost every single person in that fire department in the terrorist attacks. So we're sitting there, and we were leaving one day, and we looked across, and it was what is the hotel that has the flags all out front, and it's really nice, has all the lobbies. And,
starts with an R.
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, we're like, well, we're just going to go over there and see what it's like to. The other half lives, and we walk in there. People were like, "We're so glad to meet you. We're glad you're here." And I'm thinking, well, maybe this was part of the whole tour. So then they take us through this elevator, and they take us to the 15th floor, and they usher us into this room. And there's all kinds of other people in wheelchairs, and they're like, "Well, you're part of this group," and we're like, "No, we're just wanted to tour the lobby of your hotel."
Oh.
We have people we need to get back downstairs. We didn't get the same elevators. We went through the freight elevators going down. So yeah, that part was not too great. And then Micah, she got to go through, Busch Gardens and Walt Disney World and all of that, where Trip had the Fast Pass, where you go to those places today, you might pay $110 to get through the gate. You're going to go through 3 rides. That's it, because you're going to wait for an hour and a half to 2 hours for every ride.
I couldn't do it.
We were bypassed and taken each ride. I think we rode 6 or 7 rides that day. So there were benefits too. It wasn't always a part where they were denied.
Was there a community of people like him that he could talk to?
Somewhat, until he met Katie, and Katie was was an angel sent for Trip. She is his girlfriend. They met in a science class, Miss Hathcock's class at Cleveland High School. He was in different classrooms for the majority of the time, but he would then migrate to other classes because he understood. I mean, he was a very intelligent young man, and he took his first science test in the regular classroom without taking notes, just listening. And he would tell his nurse what the answer was, because his arms were getting weak at that time. And she would make sure the instructor was there watching it all and make sure it was right. And he made an 88 in a regular science classroom at Cleveland High School. First time listening. Well, it also allowed him to meet this pretty girl who was also in a wheelchair, who was having a difficult time with cutting up the baby pig. And Trip saw his balcony moment like his daddy, and like, I can help you do that. And he met Katie. They went to prom, and it was just a special bond that they had. So,
where is she now?
They live in Ottawa. She and her twin sister. They have an apartment themselves, and then her mom and father have an apartment close by. They're building another home, but they're learning to live on their own right now. So
what's her name again? Katie what?
Katie Seaton, Seaton.
Shout out to Katie Seaton. Right?
Yes, she's an amazing gift to Trip and to our family and her family. She's good people. Mm-hmm.
Boys, it's tough, isn't it?
It's been an event I would not wish on anyone, but I do know that God gives you all these things for a reason, and I hope that somebody might be going through the same thing, understand to have faith, keep listening and talking to God. And the pastor said, even today, even when you don't have the strength to say, again, I need you, God hears.
And some people go through this with kids that aren't physical, but they're mental, and they're as debilitating.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You'd think they could do something about that, but you can't do something about the other, but they can't either. It's just debilitating. You think you feel extremely strong about the power of prayer?
Most definitely, sir. That's the only thing that's got me through. Like I said, from 2011, and as a young child, you hear all that and you understand. But the older you get and you put it into practice yourself, There's been too many things God's brought me through not to believe.
And a lot of things are so just too coincidental.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just too coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning any trips now, things that you'd like to do that you haven't had the chance to do?
Well, actually, Peggy and I had talked about that earlier today as well. I would like to, because she and I have never really been on a trip.
I guess not.
Our anniversary, I have a credit card who gives me a free night somewhere within the United States. So we would make sure that the night nurse and the day nurse could coordinate to where we could go to Gatlinburg or somewhere close just for a day. But yeah, Peggy deserves a nice trip, and I hope that we'll do that in the near future.
If you want residential or commercial plumbing, give Rick's Plumbing a call, Coach Jason or Josh. They'll do you a good job. I use them. I've used them for years. They're no problem.
Come on, woo!
Now, we had, as she would have told you, she lived her life in 4-hour increments to where she knew she had to be back at the house if she went grocery shopping, if she went anywhere. On weekends, we didn't have day or evening coverage most of the time. So 4 hours was the longest she could be away from the house. And toward the end, the last 6 months, 3.5 was, we were up every 3.5 hours because you had to make sure all of his machines were there, and she slept in right next to his bed. So, yeah.
Boys,
She's been a trooper.
you couldn't have done it without her.
There's no way. There is no way.
It wouldn't have been possible.
Nope. She's my gift from Maine and from God above.
When you say Maine, was that where she's from?
She's originally from Maine. I've been less than 5 miles from home since I was born.
Yeah.
She was in the upper portions of Maine, like 20 minutes from Canada, in a little bitty tiny town called Washburn, Maine. It's above Presque Isle. And then they moved to Florida, and then they moved to Peachtree City, Georgia. When you go into Peachtree City, Georgia, there is a Peggy Lane when you're coming in. She worked for the city manager when they built that, where it was all golf courts and all the stuff they have at Peachtree City. And then she didn't want to go. She was raised Assemblies of God. She didn't want to go to their college. And the pastor then said, well, there's a school up in Cleveland, Tennessee called Lee College. And that's how she made it to Cleveland.
So you met her when she was a freshman
She was a senior. She had been there
3 years.
I never met her.
Never seen. Had she been going to North Cleveland?
She had been going to North Cleveland.
You just dismissed her?
Again, a God thing. Yep. It's wild.
Now, what's the difference between Assembly of God and Church of God? Is there anything real distinctively different?
I don't think so, no. In Maine, where they were from, you were either Assemblies of God or Catholic. Those were the two main denominations up in Maine. So she was Assemblies of God.
You think that all these different denominations, you think they'll all be in heaven?
I do. I think there's good and bad in every organization and in every church.
I mean, Assemblies of God, Church of God, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Primitive Baptist. Yeah. We couldn't name them all.
No. And you can learn from all of them if you just have an open mind. Now, there's some things that they teach that I have a difficult time with, but you can learn.
Well, do you ever wonder if we're just reading it, like you go to the King James, the New International, and all these different, and there's just slightly different words. You think, well, is there a slightly different word from the King James? And it was translated from Hebrew, and it was translated from Aramaic. So How do we even know that we're reading? Do we assume it's the inspired Word of God? Because the Catholics have 4 other books.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I don't get into the theology.
We can't worry about that, can we?
No, we can't. I think the message is the same. I think sometimes the messengers get it kind of more difficult and more complicated than it ever has to be.
Is it all boiled down to one message, or is it all boiled down to a nutshell, you think?
Well, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believes in him shall live. That's pretty basic.
You think it all boils down to accepting Jesus Christ as our Savior?
I do. You have to act. I mean, you hear all these people that talk about, well, a good God wouldn't send anybody to hell. He doesn't. It's your choice. He wants everybody to be with him. But you have to agree to the message and believe.
And these different nuances of different denominations is not.
I don't think there's going to be that in heaven. No, I don't. That's just things that men and women have done to it.
We can't get confused about all that, can we? We could sit and talk about it all day, and we couldn't even prove it. We couldn't even prove each other's points.
I remember my grandmother talking about when she was older. There's things that she would just sit and ponder. You know, you heard that word.
Yeah, ponder.
They would just try and get to the bottom of it. And she's like, it's never ending. You have to finally just accept and believe. So.
And we don't even know what we're accepting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, because you'd have to. So she'd use the word ponder. Was she a Hathcock, or which was she?
Well, see that, and I'm glad you asked that. That was Robertson. My maternal grandmother was Robertson. They moved here in 1906 from McMinn County. They were in Calhoun, and a Surrey, horse-drawn Surrey took them 9 hours to get here from Calhoun.
Calhoun, Tennessee.
Calhoun, Tennessee.
Was that in 1809?
1906.
1906.
Yeah. And then my grandmother Hathcock, they were both actually from North Carolina. The men in the family, my grandfathers, I never met either one of them.
Now, see, your mother's mother,
right,
was a Robertson.
She was a Robertson. That's
how they came from North Carolina.
Eventually, and then they went in Calhoun, and then she made it to Cleveland. Right behind Schimmel Park, in a house they had right there. And then Dad's family, they were from Statesville and Albemarle, and she was 20 years old, met a 40-year-old Cherokee Indian man, and he had never been married. They got married, had Dad,
our hero,
and then made it to Cleveland, Tennessee when he was in going to Lee High School or Lee College. They had a high school back then, but she was the one.
And what year was this?
That would have been
roughly.
Dad was born in 31, so that would have probably been 41, 51, probably about 48, 49.
Was that before the Bob Jones College?
It was Bob Jones, yes. And then when my grandfather passed away, she moved to Lee to be a dorm supervisor. She was at Lee College back then.
Wonder why they came to Calhoun from North Carolina. You ever wonder what the motives were back then? I mean,
they had Simpson. Granny was a Simpson before she married Robertson. They had Simpson sorghum and Simpson brooms. Is what all the kids made.
So she was kind of an entrepreneur, I guess.
She was. Her daddy actually served. Interesting side note. Her father served in the state legislature one term, and he missed her wedding, Dee, to vote for women's right to vote in Nashville.
Now, wait just a minute. That's interesting. Wasn't that a Mr. Burns?
Well, Burns was from Etowah. Jacob Simpson was her dad, and he was from Cleveland. He actually served one term, but in that era, you didn't go to Nashville and come back in one day.
Uh-huh.
And after that vote, you remember they chased Burns completely around upstairs. He was hiding in the rafters, and
January 6th,
Yep.
supposedly.
yep, it
BS.
took it. He had to stay a little bit longer over there, and then by the time he made it back, she had been married. But he said, "I did the vote for you and for your daughters and for your sisters." She had either 8 or 9 sisters.
So her father
Right.
was not Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is the one that had the last vote. Is that
He
right?
had the last vote.
He had the last vote.
Yeah, but Jacob
But
Jacob Simpson also voted for it. Was her father.
he just didn't have the last vote. He could have been as famous if Burns would have gone before him.
Right.
And so they chased him all through the
Chase Burns all through the State House.
just because letting women vote.
Yeah.
Boy, we've come a long way.
You
haven't
can
we?
read the history of the story of the vote. Even when my great grandfather came back to Cleveland, even he was lambasted at town meetings because he voted that way. He only served one time, and
I guess that was the reason.
Yeah, it was enough for him.
Isn't that crazy how
Yep.
far we've come? Now the Burns guy's buried in Noda.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Isn't that a strange connection? Me and you have a slight connection, or
Mhm.
you have a slight connection
Mm-hmm.
to Mr. Burns.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, what about your dad's family?
They were from, like I said, Albemarle and Statesville, and he was the only son. It was a different time back then, and Granny felt very isolated. If it would almost be very similar to marrying another race in the 60s. In the 20s, when you married an Indian,
Is that right?
that was
I guess,
not
yeah.
something that you did, especially somebody twice your age. She lost the majority of her family. She had one brother that would still speak to her. But she was an amazing woman. I mean, you talk about, I don't know how much she finished in school, but she was a financial master. Working at Lee College, she bought not only one, but she had 2 rental houses on her own with no husband.
And the the men didn't get property either,
No.
so she wasn't.
She didn't get that.
Hmm.
He was buried in I've been to his grave. He's buried in a Baptist church cemetery that's a borrowed grave because they didn't have money to get him a grave. But yeah, it was a different era, different time. But I'm so thankful for the grandmothers that I did get to meet,
Mhm.
both of them.
You remember anything they said besides sometimes you ponder?
Well, a lot of stuff Dave Ramsey said, Granny Robertson would always say, it doesn't matter what you make, it matters what you save. And I think back, she lived in a house on Ball Street that was new to her. She got like $200 from Social Security and always had money, always, off of that. She did, kept all the kids. Dennis Jordan up at Jordan's Barbecue,
Mm-hmm.
his brother and his little sister Lori, and it was the neighborhood grandkids. Granny kept them all. I don't know if she ever charged, but I'm sure people helped her some at Christmas.
Are you and Dennis close to the same age or what?
He's my sister's age. Lori is my age. She lives in Hawaii. So we grew up kind of the same time, and Granny kept us all over there.
Did I see your picture on Facebook with Jolie?
Yes.
Which one? Was y'all in the same?
There's a Sunday school class thing. And we went to high school. We went to grade school, middle school, and high school together.
He's a really good guy.
Oh,
isn't he?
he's phenomenal. I told him.
Would you trust him with anything?
I'd trust him with my life. I really would. I told him, I told his mother, I said, when I was younger, I really didn't like your son. And they're like, Lindsay, why would you say that? And I'm like, well, just imagine. I'm trying to learn to write Lindsay Lavoy Hathcock Jr. And he's learning to write Joe Lee. And she's like, I kind of get it now. But yeah, he's top notch.
Do you remember having the picture taken of holding the flag up?
I do. There's Sunday school pictures with Valerie Dixon and Margot Steele. And yeah, it was, again, there was a time that we'll probably never see again. But it was a wonderful childhood.
Now, did you go to Miss Chisholm's kindergarten?
Didn't go to kindergarten. I did not.
Because then they always had the graduation in that church.
Yes, and back
because that's where I graduated kindergarten.
Well, when I was that age, actually, I'm a year younger than all the other people because I was bigger than most other kids, and they didn't want me to. They wanted me to start school early, so I went to school early. So I remember I came home, and Terry Pyatt, if you remember Terry, when he was, I said, I was in a race today, Dad. He said, I came in third. He said, well, how many people were in the race? And I said, 3. So yeah, we had some good times. Yep. Yeah.
That's funny. I always remember that. WKRP in Cincinnati. Remember Johnny Fever? He said his daddy told him to always come in at least 10th. That's pretty easy standards to live to.
Yep. Yeah, but those were some good times. I had a wonderful childhood. I really did. And you look back on that now and you think there were so many people that it took to protect all of us when we were younger in city government, county government, school systems. It was an ideal time. Really
and when you're little like that, you look up to these people like they're a god.
Yeah.
And you wonder today if kids are looking at us that way, and you think, boy, I hope not, because
some of us don't leave a very good example.
Well, I don't have really that personality to be like that, but you wonder, but maybe we are, maybe we have more influence than we realize.
Well, I think today we have to be intentional because we're competing against so many other things that these children are enamored by. Peggy and I were at a local restaurant this past week. And I sat there and watched it for as long as I could. And I'm like, baby, I just can't do this. And she's like, what? I'm like, there was a couple there and probably 3 or 4 adults. And they had one child, probably 9 or 10 years old. He had earbuds in his ears and was playing a game on his phone. No communication, no conversation, no acknowledgement that he even existed. And that was their mealtime. Now, there were times, my mom and dad divorced when I was 10. There were times that I really didn't understand why Dad was intentional so much the way he was. And especially as a single child, he was the only child. But that would have lasted about 15 seconds, if that, at my home. Because, son, put it down. We're at meal. And you don't understand it, and you sometimes feel like that they were mean or just didn't want us to have any fun. But the older you get, you realize they were teaching you how to act, how to do, how to be, and we're better for it. We really are. Yeah.
Are you looking forward to the next 30 years?
I am. I really am. Pain level, there are things that concern me as a chiropractor because Peggy had said sometimes ignorance is bliss when you don't know what's going to happen. With some of the degenerative changes, I just hope that my back and my ability to function is still around. But I do. I look forward to every day.
You think that excitement creates enthusiasm, and we got to get excited about the next 20 years, and let's get out in the morning and let's go after it.
Yeah. Yep. We joined fitness thing. Peggy
What's
and I did.
OEF?
The gym down there at the village used to be where the bowling alley. So we've been going. to that.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's a crazy name.
It is.
Why don't they just call it?
The gym.
Why? Oh yeah.
I don't know,
Crazy.
but we're trying to make some changes and do better.
Every time I go by there, I'll think about bowling.
I know.
Did you ever play foosball down there?
I used to go there and watch other people bowl that were much better than me. When Dad and Mom divorced again, in the wintertime, he would come up every Saturday and we would go bowling, eat at the Chef. Then in the summertime, we would go play tennis at the new courts that are now at Cleveland State that are 40-something years of age, but they were brand new then.
Yeah.
And then we go eat at the Chef. So, yes, I remember bowling and the smell. You talk about, again, the smell. You can associate that with the smell. Bill Wheeler just got the old Church of God Publishing House, the building up there by North Cleveland.
Yeah.
Dad worked there for years. The smell is still there from all those ink barrels and stuff that were there. It's just, I walked in and I said, I got to stand here for just a while because I remember my childhood days there with my dad.
Wouldn't it be funny if only we smell that? If somebody else would say, I don't smell anything.
Yeah, that would be kind of wild.
Because it could be more in our psyche or something.
It could be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lindsay, you're a great example, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
I love you.
Well, I love you too. Thank you.